Welcome to the Think Forward podcast, where we speak with futurists, innovators, and big thinkers. Come along with your host, Steve Fisher, and explore the future together.
Welcome back to Foundations in Foresight, a Think Forward series. I'm your host, Steve Fisher, today, and today marks a milestone episode, episode 40. Over the past several episodes, we've built a comprehensive foresight foundation from understanding super shifts in the transform model to developing layered scenarios with spectrum layered analysis, also known as SLA, and implementing the Futures Operating System, or FOS. This episode is about stepping back, reflecting on what we've learned, and preparing for the next phase of the series. We'll do three things today. First is to review key takeaways from episodes 21 to 39, what we've covered and why it matters. We will then provide a structured framework for applying what we've learned, ensuring that foresight isn't just a concept, but a tool for shaping real-world decisions. And then to wrap things up, we will preview the next phase of this series, episodes 41 to 60, where we'll shift focus to dive deep into the 9 super shifts in our new book of the same name. If you've been following along, this is the perfect moment to pause, reflect, and refine your approach to foresight. And if you're just joining us, this episode will serve as a roadmap to everything we've covered so far. All right then, let's dive in. Over the last 20 episodes, we've built a structured approach to foresight thinking, equipping you with the tools to identify change, design futures, and take action. We've moved beyond just thinking about the future in abstract terms. We've developed a framework for actively shaping it. Let's take a moment to step back and reflect on the core insights we've covered. First, we focused on understanding the big picture of change. We explored the 9 super shifts, those major transformations that are reshaping society, business, and technology. These aren't just trends. They're deep structural forces that will define the coming decades. Alongside that, we introduced the transform model, a structured way to navigate uncertainty, anticipate disruptions, and build future-ready strategies. Then, we moved into developing foresight as a skill set. We introduced the Spectrum Foresight method, which breaks down the foresight process into 4 key phases: scoping and sensing, where we learn what signals to look for; exploring and designing, where we craft layered, multi-perspective futures; applying and acting, where we translate foresight into real-world decisions; and embedding and scaling, where foresight becomes an ongoing, repeatable process. One of the biggest shifts we made in this phase was moving beyond traditional rigid scenario planning into spectrum layered analysis, SLA, a tool that helps us build more dynamic, coexisting futures rather than forcing predictions into a single fixed framework. Once we had foresight capabilities in place, we turned our attention to execution. Because having insights about the future is one thing, knowing how to act on them is another. That's where the Futures Action Framework came in, a structured process for turning foresight into tangible strategy. And then we went even deeper, breaking down the Futures Operating System, FOS, which consists of 6 core components: scanning and signal detection, scenario development, strategy formulation, practical implementation, feedback loops, and continuous learning. Finally, we explored how to scale foresight across an organization. We looked at how foresight moves from being a specialized function, something handled by a select few futurists, to becoming a full organizational capability. We also introduced key performance indicators for foresight, helping leaders measure success through strategic adaptability, innovation pipeline contribution, and risk mitigation effectiveness. Through all of this, the message has been clear. Foresight isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing for multiple futures. It's about building the capacity to act, not just analyze. It's about making foresight a habit, a culture, a way of thinking. And that's exactly what we're going to build on next. Because in the next phase of this series, we're taking foresight from theory to deep application, using it to track emerging signals, build world models, and design scenarios that drive action. If you've been following along, you now have the foundation. What comes next is learning how to use it to shape what's ahead. The real question now is, how do you apply all of this to your work, your organization, or your personal strategy? It's one thing to understand foresight and recognize these major transformations happening around us, but turning that knowledge into action, that's where the real impact happens. So let's break it down into a practical approach that you can actually use, whether you're running a business, leading a team, or mapping out your own career path. The first step is to conduct a foresight audit. Take a good look at how your organization, or even just you personally, currently approaches the future. Is there a structured way to think about long-term trends, Or is it more of a reactionary process? Are you keeping an eye on emerging signals, or are you mostly focused on short-term operations? Some organizations already have a form of strategic foresight in place, but it might be scattered across different departments. Others don't have any formal approach at all. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, the goal here is to identify the gaps. Do you need better scanning tools? Do you need a structured way to integrate foresight into decision-making? Are you missing a way to turn trends into real strategic actions? Once you have that picture, the next step is to choose where to start. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. The key is to find an entry point that makes the most sense for your situation. If your biggest challenge is spotting early signals of change, then maybe the best place to start is setting up a small foresight scanning team, something lightweight that tracks trends and weak signals in your industry. If the struggle is long-term decision-making, then integrating scenario planning into your strategy meetings might be the best approach. And if you need leadership buy-in, the most effective move might be framing foresight in a way that directly connects to business risks and opportunities, showing exactly how long-term shifts could impact revenue, talent strategy, or competitive positioning. From there, you can build a foresight-to-action plan. This doesn't have to be overly complex. One powerful approach is to set up a quarterly foresight review, a structured meeting to track signals of change and emerging risks. You can also develop a future stress test, where you take your current strategies and test them against different future scenarios to see how resilient they are. Another approach is to run small, foresight-driven pilot projects, experimenting with future-oriented ideas on a small scale before committing to a larger rollout. And finally, make sure foresight doesn't stay isolated. The best organizations don't just leave futures thinking to one person or one team. They make it a shared responsibility across leadership, strategy, and innovation teams. Training leaders and teams to think beyond short-term planning creates a foresight culture, where scanning for trends and thinking about future possibilities becomes part of everyday decision-making. It's also important to establish a feedback loop, so foresight isn't just a one-time exercise, it's continuously updated as new insights emerge. At the end of the day, foresight isn't just about having the right information, it's about building the right systems, behaviors, and cultures so that when change comes, you're not just reacting to it, you're already prepared. Over the past 40 episodes, we've built the foundation for thinking about the future differently. We've explored foresight as a discipline, strategic thinking models, and the importance of understanding change before reacting to it. But now, we're about to take that knowledge and focus it on the forces that are actively reshaping our world. In the next 20 episodes, we're diving into the 9 super shifts, the major transformations that are unfolding across society, technology, business, and culture. These aren't just trends. They're deep, systemic forces that are shifting the foundations of how we live, work, and think about the future. We'll begin by introducing the 9 super shifts as a whole, mapping out how they connect and why they represent a new way of thinking about disruption. Then, we'll take a deep dive into each one, looking at the forces driving them, their implications, and how they intersect with one another. We'll start with generational drift, where we'll explore how demographic shifts and evolving generational mindsets are challenging traditional institutions, reshaping the workforce and redefining cultural norms. It's not just about millennials and Gen Z. It's about how every generation is adapting to a rapidly changing world and what that means for leadership, innovation, and the future of work. Then, we'll move into IntelliFusion, where AI and human intelligence are merging in ways that go far beyond automation. We're going to unpack how AI is shaping decision-making, creativity, and governance, and how the nature of intelligence itself is evolving as machines become more integrated into our thought processes. Next, we'll tackle tech-acceleration, the ever-increasing speed of technological development. If you think change is happening fast now, just wait. We'll explore how quantum computing, biotech, and next-gen AI are compressing innovation cycles, forcing businesses and governments to adapt in real time rather than over decades. From there, we step into Reality Remix, where the physical and digital worlds are fusing in ways that challenge our understanding of reality itself. This is about augmented reality, virtual spaces, and immersive technologies, and how they're transforming entertainment, business, and even identity. Then we shift to Power Flow, where energy is becoming decentralized, intelligent, and responsive. We're going to explore how renewables, smart grids, and decentralized energy storage are turning energy from a commodity into a networked system, reshaping everything from geopolitics to corporate strategy. That leads us to eco-awakening, the shift from sustainability as a checkbox to full-scale regenerative thinking. We'll dive into how businesses, governments, and individuals are moving beyond reducing harm and toward actively restoring ecosystems and building circular economies. Then, we'll explore social quake, where trust in institutions is eroding and people are creating new decentralized networks of power, influence, and governance. We'll talk about how communities, businesses, and even entire societies are rethinking how they operate in a world where top-down control is fading. After that, we'll move into world mosaic, where the old order of globalization is breaking apart, and we're moving into a multipolar world of regional economic systems, cultural power shifts, and competing financial networks. This shift will define global strategy, investment, and political influence for decades to come. And finally, we arrive at BioNexus, where synthetic biology, gene editing, and AI-driven biotech are transforming healthcare, agriculture, and even human longevity. We'll talk about the ethical and societal implications of a world where biology is no longer just something we observe, but something we actively design. Each of these shifts is a transformation in its own right. But the real challenge isn't just understanding them in isolation, it's seeing how they interact, amplify one another, and create entirely new possibilities and risks. At the end of this series, in episode 60, we'll bring it all together, exploring how these shifts are colliding, cascading, and converging to create a new landscape for the future. But here's the key. This next phase isn't just about learning what's changing. It's about developing the foresight skills to make sense of these transformations and use them strategically. That's where we're headed next. So as we move forward, I challenge you to start thinking about how these shifts are already showing up in your industry, your community, and your own life. Over the next 20 episodes, we'll unpack the details, explore the implications, and build the strategic mindset needed to navigate the future with clarity and confidence. Let's get started. Final thoughts and challenge for listeners. This episode is about pausing, reflecting, and preparing for what's next. So here's your challenge. Go back through episodes 21 to 39 and identify the one concept that had the biggest impact on you. Find one way to apply foresight in your work or personal strategy. Write down your own future readiness plan. How can you stay ahead of change? Foresight isn't just about learning. It's about applying, experimenting, and evolving. In our next phase, we'll dive deeper into strategy, leadership, and implementation, ensuring that foresight isn't just something you know about, but something you actively use to shape your future. Until then, keep exploring, reflecting, and as always, think forward.
Thanks for listening to the Think Forward podcast. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms and at www.thinkforwardshow.com, as well as on YouTube under Think Forward Show. See you next time.